I'm not happy today. And I don't think Nationals fans should be happy today because, yet again, the MLB Draft Lottery has hosed the Washington Nationals.
You are Locked On Nationals, your daily Washington Nationals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Clary. You can catch me over on Twitter at RyanClary11 and as well as the show page at LO_Nationals. For all your latest Nationals news and notes, just make sure to check us out over on there. And later on in today's show, the MLB Rule 5 draft is today. Who will the Nationals be targeting? What kind of position? What should they be looking at? We'll discuss that later on of today's show. And it is a What If Wednesday. So, of course, you know what I have to do. Come up with a what if question. And today's question is, what if Lane Thomas can have sustained success going into 2024 and beyond? Well, there would be some good things coming the Nationals' way. I can tell you that much right here and right now. But let's start off with the MLB Draft Lottery, because this is just my belief in general. The MLB Draft Lottery is so stupid. And in fact, any lottery in any sport for a draft is dumb. My whole belief of when you go into an MLB draft, when you go into a draft, the worst team should have the best pick. The second worst team should have the second best pick. That's just simply as to how it goes. And it's not even just about that. It's also just about how teams build their team, how teams have sustained success. Look at the Houston Astros and what they have done right now. The sustained success that they have had since 2016 all the way through 2023, and then probably going on beyond into 2024. Teams like that, teams like the Orioles, who are just embarking on that process, winning 100 games this last year after being one of the worst teams in all of baseball for the last decade plus. This is how teams build. And I don't think Major League Baseball, they can talk to you about how maybe it's going to incentivize teams to stop tanking. That's never the case. And in fact, in my opinion with this, taking the MLB Draft Lottery and doing whatever you want with it, the way that Rob Manfred has in Major League Baseball, you are just literally taking the ball out of someone's hands in which you probably shouldn't be there to begin with. A general manager, their job is to build and construct a team. Baseball has said, this is why we're doing this. This is why we're going to go in and try to make this difference. We're going to implement this draft lottery and we're going to take away tanking. But that's not how it works. You also just sleep on the fact that guys are just bad at their jobs. People are bad at their jobs in general. And yes, we are in a professional category here with professional sports. You're at the top of the market in the entire world. Yeah, you have great people who have done great things in this industry heading your operation. Should they be penalized for that? Maybe. But also, you're penalizing teams like the Pittsburgh Pirates, the Oakland Athletics, because the whole incentivization of this entire MLB Draft Lottery is to get rid of tanking. They want teams to stop tanking and start to incentivize them. And really, the MLB Players Association, they want teams to start spending. Teams like the Nationals, you could not pick inside the top 10 of this year's draft. If you didn't know, the Washington Nationals, the fifth worst team in baseball from this last year, they won the MLB Draft Lottery yesterday. They got the first overall pick. And then also, because they can't pick inside the top 10, they obviously had to rerun that lottery. Lo and behold, they got the second overall pick then. Twice. And now the Nationals, they're stuck at picking 10th overall. Now, am I just a whiny Nationals fan today? Maybe. But I also think Major League Baseball, of all the changes that they have made, this is something to where they got completely wrong. Because teams like the Pirates, the A's, the Kansas City Royals, the Colorado Rockies, the teams that don't necessarily spend as much money as the top dogs in all the big markets across the sport, those are the teams that really get hosed. And the Nationals, maybe in this scenario, they are considered to be a top market, one of the top markets in all of baseball, a top 10 market. In fact, the Nationals, they were the ones who got hosed in this scenario. But also that, the A's, who were 50 and 112, they aren't picking number one overall. The Orioles, or the Royals, who won 56 games this year, they aren't picking number one overall. The Rockies, who won 59 games this last year, they aren't picking number one overall. The White Sox, who won 61 games, they aren't picking number one overall either. That is where we have an issue here. That is where the issue really culminates here with me. You have these teams who are just simply bad, who need to have the best possible outcome possible in this draft. Get the best player, get better, work them through the farm system, develop them. You are taking that away from teams who desperately need these prospects, who desperately need an opportunity, and also their fans need a little bit of hope. Because at the end of the day, that is what you're ripping away from these teams. You're ripping away the opportunity to draft, name that prospect, like last year's draft. The Nationals, they should have, and really could have, had the pick of the litter with Paul Skeens or Dylan Cruz or Wyatt Langford at number one overall. Ultimately, Dylan Cruz fell to them at number two, which that's who would have been my pick at number one. So it worked out for us ultimately, but still, the Nationals, they should have been picking number one overall last year. And now, after winning the lottery this year, and you can't pick inside the top 10 because you can't pick it in 2-3 straight years, that is dumb. You're literally just naming something like, 3 straight years, you can't pick inside the top 10. What? It just makes no sense to me. And I think yesterday, as the Cleveland Guardians and the Cincinnati Reds end up with the number one and number two overall pick, the Guardians were 76 and 86. They weren't a good baseball team, but they still won 26 more games than the Oakland Athletics. They won 20 more games than the Royals. And then on the other hand, with the Cincinnati Reds, they were one of the winning teams this year. They were 82 and 80. They got the second overall pick. The rich are getting richer. These two teams, the Guardians and the Reds, now I'm happy for them. I like both these organizations. I think they're both very good organizations, and they have done some great things over the last few years. But these are two teams that did not need the help. The teams that need the help are probably the teams that stunk last year. Again, the A's, Royals, Rockies, White Sox, the Cardinals. Those are the teams that probably need it. The Nationals, they're in that pile as well, finishing at 71 and 91, same record as the Cardinals. They should have had at least the small chance of getting inside that top 3. But no, the MLB Players Association, they wanted to make a change. And again, I'm a players guy. I want the players to succeed. I root for the players, not the owners. But in this scenario, the MLBPA, they got this all wrong. This does not incentivize teams to spend, because that's what it is at the end of the day. That's what they want. And in fact, it creates a lot more friction than it does with anything else. Because here's the thing. What is this going to stop? You are penalizing the Pirates for being bad. You are penalizing the Nationals for being bad. And so for they're bad, you're going to penalize them and bring them back a little bit in the draft. I don't think that's going to incentivize anyone to spend. In fact, this could just drag along the process of really rebuilding and making a better ball club on the major league roster here. So the whole point of this with the MLBPA, Rob Manfred, and the CBA, this is what it's calling for. I just think it's not right. And I think Major League Baseball, the worst possible scenario happened for them last night. Two teams that did not deserve the number one and number two overall picks, they landed them. And then also, on the other hand of it, the first lottery that was pulled, the Nationals were projected to be 5th. Let's say if there wasn't that stupid lottery rule where you can't pick inside the top 10, the Nationals would have won that. Even then, that is a flawed process, and I admit it. Would I be cheering if we were the number one overall pick today? Absolutely. We'd be talking about it. We'd be hooting and we'd be hollering. It'd be a fun time here. But the fact of the matter is, the lottery is just dumb. And you see with the NFL crossing streams here. The NFL, there's so much parity. And from the next year on, if you suck this year, you have 3 wins. Look at the Houston Texans from last year. They stunk. Now what happens? You have CJ Stroud. You have that top overall pick in the draft. And yes, they've stunk for a while, but you can have the opportunity to get that franchise-altering player now because they don't have this MLB draft lottery system. You can't just say, oh, you're not picking inside the top 10 here. Is Major League Baseball is a little easier to draft and find talent in rounds? Yeah, it is a little bit easier. So at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter all too much. But still, like in last year's draft, when you have Wyatt Langford, Dylan Cruz, and Paul Skeens sitting there in the top 3, and the 3 worst teams, they don't have those picks. Like the A's, they got screwed out of it. It just doesn't really make all too much sense to me. And at the end of the day, I think this makes parity a lot worse in Major League Baseball. And I don't think the outcome that baseball wanted and the MLBPA wanted is going to be what they all originally thought. I think this is going to penalize bad teams. I think this is going to penalize people who are just simply not that great at their jobs. And maybe some say they deserve it. But on the other hand, I don't think they do. And that is just my opinion. I could be wrong. Let me know. Maybe I'm a salty Nationals fan. Whatever it is. I don't think the MLB lottery is right. I don't think it will be right. I don't think the baseball and the MLBPA got this right whatsoever. I think it's just wrong. I think it's wrong to have this outlier of now you can't pick in the top 10 3 straight. Whatever the rule is, dumb. It's not that smart, if we're just being honest here. Thank you all for making Locked On Nats your first listen every single day. It is a What If Wednesday. We usually start off with a What If Wednesday, but I just kind of wanted to bitch and moan about the MLB Draft Lottery. It's one of those days. It's December 6th. I'm not in a jolly mood, to say the least. We'll talk to you guys about this What If Wednesday, and that What If Wednesday is what if Lane Thomas can have this sustained success. Coming off a career year up to this point, should have been an all-star this last year, should have been a Gold Glove winner, one of the best defenders in right field in all of baseball. What if Lane Thomas can have some sustained success? Well, it would open up the doors of plenty of possibility for what the Nationals could do. We'll talk about that after I tell you guys about our friends at Jase Medical. And I know we come to sports to escape from some of the crazy realities of life, but can we just talk about for a minute about preparing for tough situations, whether you're on extended travel, bracing for a major weather event, or limited by yet another supply shortage? You are covered, my friend. Thanks to our partners at Jace Medical, life-saving antibiotics and a long list of daily medications can be ordered in a 1-year supply. Even ED generics for Cialis or Viagra. Jace Medical has the Jace case. The Jace case is a pack of 5 different antibiotics to treat a long list of bacterial illnesses, including UTIs, respiratory infections, sinusitis, skin infections, among others. This stuff could happen to any of us. So visit jasemedical.com to complete your physician encounter. It will be reviewed by a board-certified physician, and your medications will be dispensed by a licensed pharmacy at a fraction of the regular cost. It's never been more important to be prepared than today. Go to jasemedical.com and use offer code LOCKEDON to get $20 off your first order. Now we get back into it as Nationals. They got screwed yesterday, but it's time to flip the page because we got to do a What If Wednesday here. And today's What If Wednesday prompt is, what if Lane Thomas can have sustained success in the year of 2024? Well, number one, if Lane Thomas can have the year that he just had in 2023, it's going to open up the door of possibilities for many different things. Number one, the Nationals just may have stumbled their way into a very solid outfielder for hopefully for the next few years to come. And at this moment, are we going to extend him? Are we going to sign him? Who knows? That's something we can play down the line. But if Lane Thomas can have the year that he just had, hitting 28 home runs, stealing 20 bases, batting .268, having a .783 OPS, being a very good defensive right fielder, being just a valuable everyday player. If Lane Thomas can have that success and really build onto what he did in 2023, this Nationals rebuild won't be that long, because then all of a sudden you have Lane Thomas in right field. Sometime this year, you're going to have Dylan Cruz up in the majors. And I think at that point, whenever he's up, he'll probably stay up. And then in left field, you have James Wood, who probably will make his debut at some point this year. Will he stay there? Who knows at this moment in time? You look at those three pieces right there. You have someone with major power like James Wood, someone who has the potential to hit 40 home runs down the line. Then on the other hand, you have Dylan Cruz, a real five-tool kind of talent, someone who's going to hit for power, who's going to hit for average, play solid defensively, center field, all the different things that you want a player to do. Dylan Cruz has those tools, and he'll probably make the most of it. And then on the other hand, with Lane Thomas, someone who's smart defensively, someone who can put the ball in play. Does he strike out a lot? Absolutely. 176 strikeouts this year. Got to cut down on that. But all the numbers behind that, and if he were to cut down his strikeout rate, which he might be able to do going into this year, then I think that is when you will see a much better process and a much better result of this rebuild. Lane Thomas and him panning out opens up so many different doors of what the Nationals could do. Door number one, this could just be someone who's your right fielder for the next 4 to 5 years. Maybe you extend him because, again, he's not a Scott Boras client. And then also, on the other side of the door, you could trade him. If you believe in Robert Hassel, if you believe in Elijah Green, or if you want to go out in free agency and maybe upgrade your right field position, you have opportunities to do that. Or maybe it's just another guy in-house like an Andrew Pinckney, or name that prospect, Jeremy De La Rosa. Maybe he comes up, Christian Vaquero. All the different possibilities that could come from a Lane Thomas really just being a good baseball player. You could then trade Lane Thomas for a prospect that you may need. You could then trade him for a top pitching prospect. You could then trade him for an MLB-ready talent who may be over at first base, who may be over at third base, second base, wherever the hole that you need to fill. That is where you could put that guy. The Nationals, they've got a ton of different possibilities here when it comes to Lane Thomas. But if he were to have sustained success, I wouldn't be surprised if the Nationals were to be pushing maybe 75, 80 wins just this year alone, even without the full seasons of a James Wood and a Dylan Cruz. I think Lane Thomas, is he going to carry this team into the postseason? Not necessarily. That's not really my thought. But hitting 28 home runs, stealing 20 bags, having a 2020 season, batting .268, having a .468 slug, all those different things, that is a very good baseball player. Having the power and also the stolen base threat, that is valuable in today's game. Look at what wins in baseball. Stealing bases, hitting for power. Look at Ronald Acuna and what he has done in the game of baseball. All these different things, Lane Thomas also has the tools to possess. I'm not saying he's going to be Ronald Acuna. He's not Ronald Acuna. But he has these tools. He has that power and speed combination that is so coveted in baseball nowadays. We just kind of take advantage of it. Because Lane Thomas, he has the ability to steal way more bags than 20. I just think it's a factor of getting on base, because that is kind of where he may need to improve a little bit, is getting that walk rate back up, getting on base at a better clip than 32% of his at-bats. So if Lane Thomas, if he can have some sustained success, it's going to be a pretty beautiful picture for this Nationals team. And it's not just going to be someone where you just say, we'll trade him down the line because he's this veteran guy. No, that's not the case at all, in my opinion. In fact, if Lane Thomas is good, then you just have yourself an outfielder that you may have just lucked into. And again, if you look across Major League Baseball, all the sustained success postseason teams, you always kind of find a way to luck your way into some of these prospects, or into a DFA, someone that you sign, or a non-tendered player. You find ways to fill your positions. And it's not always just signing a big free agent and putting him at second base or whatever it may be. It's also just finding your 6th-round draft pick in the 2020 MLB Draft that comes up and produces for you. It's finding your Jake Irvins back in 2019, having him come up and make a difference in the rotation. You have to find guys who are deep in someone's system. Maybe it comes from the Rule 5 draft or whatever it may be. But it's not just your traditional scout someone, see him, and then sign him in free agency. You got to have a little bit of luck here and there. And I think the Nationals, they probably had that when they traded for him back in the 2021 deadline. So if Lane Thomas can have sustained success, the Nationals, they could also be looking at sustained success then, having that in right field. It's very valuable. And at this moment, I like Lane Thomas. I'm on the Lane train. Thank you all for making Locked On Nats your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. And of course, the Rule 5 MLB Draft is today. So let's talk about that. What should the Nationals be targeting? What could be happening? We'll discuss that after this. And thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, check us out. Make sure to subscribe over on YouTube. Just search Locked On Nationals there. Yesterday, the Nationals actually released their promotions, which I think is pretty cool. They are giving away some interesting bobbleheads, you could say, because the Nationals, they have now kind of put this on our map. You aren't getting a Mike Rizzo bobblehead. Whatever you may think of that, some people think it's kind of stupid. I think it's pretty cool. And also, they're giving away a World Series champion ring. 2019 World Series champion. Obviously, it's a replica, but still, April 20th, you can get a World Series ring this year. A replica one, if that. Most of the time, that's usually what teams do the year after winning the World Series. And it's 5 years later. Maybe it's a 5-year kind of deal with the Nationals. Who knows what they want to do with it? But still, giving away a replica ring, that's really cool, in my opinion. Also, getting a Mike Rizzo bobblehead, getting a C.J. Abrams bobblehead, a Lane Thomas bobblehead, and a Lane Train bobblehead. That's all really cool, in my opinion. The Nationals should be doing a lot more of these things, and also a Mackenzie Gore bobblehead. But the most eye-popping one, a World Series replica ring. That's really cool. Kudos to the Nationals and what they're doing with that. I wanted to fit in that. But now let's get into the Rule 5 MLB Draft. As the Nationals, they could be picking in this. They've always kind of been notorious for not selecting anyone in the Rule 5 Draft because they've had so much time of just being a successful organization. But last year, they dipped into those waters, holding the number 1 overall pick. They took right-handed pitcher Thaddeus Ward. As you can tell, that's your number 1 overall pick in the Rule 5 MLB Draft. That kind of goes to show you the expectations for getting a prospect of his status. Now, the Nationals, I think they're going to be taking someone in this year's draft, but who could they be really eyeing in on here? Well, there's no real specific names. There are a few guys that are first basemen that you could say, but at this moment in time, the Rule 5 Draft and really what it is, I think you could probably find the most value from relief pitchers, guys who may have just kind of been stuck in a logjam in a loaded farm system that you can say, we like this guy's potential. He just may not be protected because other organizations, they've got to find ways in order to save their own guys. Some guys can't. Some guys are kind of left off the cutting block, and that's why they're open to a Rule 5 draft. A lot of people would say, let's go out there and let's go sign or let's go draft a first baseman. I think a first baseman would be really cool, but also you have to keep in mind with this. This is someone that you're going to have to keep on your roster for basically the entirety of the season. It is the entirety of the season. Unless they get hurt like Thaddeus Ward, and then you see the Nationals has kind of kept him out for a couple months and said he was rehabbing. I'm not going to speculate on that. That's what they said, so we'll believe it. But wink, wink, like we know what happened there. So if the Nationals were to go this route, this is going to be someone who has to stay on the roster. That is why teams always look for pitching, because it's a little easier to just kind of stash them away in the back of the bullpen, kind of keep them as guys who come in the game like Thaddeus Ward did last year when you're down 6 runs, when you just need someone to come in, take a little bit of a beating, and hopefully mature and learn from the mistakes that they make. That is where the Nationals should be in. And I think with this year's draft, while drafting a first baseman or a DH or maybe a left fielder with so much power in the world, that would be cool. But also, I want someone who is going to be an impact player and who has the chance to be. And I think if the Nationals were to go that route, if they're trying to take the most impactful player, you should probably look for a bullpen arm. Because you may not have hit last year with Thaddeus Ward, even though I like his stuff, but it doesn't mean you're not going to hit at all. And I think the Nationals, you should probably just go the safe route, take a relief pitcher, because you have 2 spots that are open on the 40-man roster right now. You have 38 spots that are taken, 2 that are open. I would imagine that you're going to sign a pitcher, maybe a first baseman, a utility fielder, whatever it is, to take up the 39th spot, then using the Rule 5 draft to clear up another spot. And then we'll just have to see what happens with the rest of it. But at this moment, I wouldn't be going for a position player. I'd be going for a pitcher, go for that safe route, continue to build the back end of the bullpen, and hopefully you just luck your way into a very good prospect who just needed an opportunity to be in the big leagues. Thank you all for making Locked On Nats your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, on tomorrow's show, we will talk about the Rule 5 draft, what the Nationals did. Did they decide to take someone, or did they decide to stay put? In which wouldn't be a terrible decision, but we'll discuss all of that on tomorrow's Locked On Nationals. I'll catch you guys. Have a good one. Enjoy the day.